Do you have anything you want to show in terms of screen sharing?
Yeah, I have slides.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's okay. Okay. Is it?
Yes.
Okay.
It's coming.
So this is the draft for my presentation on Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
So my title will be Strangers in Their Own Land, Exile and Loss of Home in Sinan Anton's The Corpse Washer and Kevin Powers' The Yellowbirds. So
Yeah.
okay. Under the definition of first I start with definition of home. Here the first one is home as a kind of relationship between people and the environment. It is an emotionally based and meaningful relationship. It's from Dovey 1985. And then another definition is the term of home function as a repository for complex, interrelated, and at times contradictory social cultural ideas about people's relationship with one another, especially family and with places, spaces, and things. Under the definition of home by Mallet, there's a lot of other definitions. Like home can be a dwelling, live space, familiarity, can be feelings of comfort, can be associated with family, self-identity, and also belonging and ideological constructs and experience of being in the world. So is it okay? Because I think the definition of home is a bit outdated. It's like 2004. Is it okay if I use this one?
Yeah, the source is
Uh-huh.
it's fine, but
Uh-huh.
this definition, is it applicable in both Western context as well as Eastern context? Is it applicable in the context of the circumstance, yeah, the hostile environment that the individuals are living through? For instance, Jawad, in the Iraqi context. So there's a lot more to it than just a straightforward definition, because I think this definition is a good start, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a good start. That's especially number three, feelings of comfort, relaxation, and security. Because at the plateau level, when
Uh-huh.
no issues, no conflicts, and no issues are in the discussion, this is how home should be, right? A
Okay.
familiar place that breeds comfort, security, sense of belonging, right?
Okay.
Uh, how does it affect, how does the definition of home, how does it evolve, or how is it reconstructed
Mm-hmm.
if there are external circumstances like trauma, like abuse, like,
Uh,
yeah. So
that I will explain further. Is that
so the
okay?
source is fine. The source is
Uh-huh.
fine because
Okay.
2004, that's fine.
Okay.
But I want you to kind of keep those things in mind. Yeah.
Okay. Because after this definition of home, I will proceed with definition of exile because that would be the my focus. But then I would need to. I think the definition of home is also necessary because it's the starting point. So this one I use the concept of exile. The term exile has been used to denote physical and psychological displacement the characters experience after their physical detachment from their homelands, which further results in their profound lack of sense of self. This is one definition. Another definition that I would like to focus on is the second definition. Exile is accorded its conventional definition, but can also be associated with a purely mental state, a sense of separation, terminal loss, and loneliness caused by political, social, or personal circumstances. So, is it okay if I use this definition?
Should be fine. But Fudzla, every code must have page reference, yeah? So,
Okay.
so yeah, that's something, because if you can have it now, later if you decide to convert your presentation into either a journal paper or publication, then it's a lot easier for you. Otherwise, you're going to have hard time looking for the references.
Okay. Okay. Um, and then I would proceed to the history of Iraq War, from Iran-Iraq War to the Gulf War, and then the Shia Rebellion, and then we have 9/11 attack, which then changed the perspective on the Middle East, and then US and Iraq War happens. So this one I will explain further. I mean, more in like the presentation. This is like the timeline
Sure.
that I will include here.
Sure.
Okay, and then this is the themes of the experience of exile. This is the one that I will use for the analysis.
Mhm.
It's by Fawcett, 2008. In there, in the paper, there's a lot of themes of like home and exile. So there's one part where she talks about the experience of exile, and these are the indicators or the themes um, related to the experience of exile. So the first one is double vision, where the character or the person is exposed to not only exposed to another perspective, so that will give them like a wider look towards the world, and also towards the place where the person um, is from. So there's like a double vision, and then there will need to be a massive identity shift or identity crisis,
Mhm.
and then there will be the effect of suffering and trauma on the life of the exile, the experience of trauma, and then freedom to compare or draw conclusion is, I think it's related to the double vision as well, because it's like when you have the double vision, you have the freedom to compare your condition before the identity shift and after the identity shift, and being disillusioned by the previous idea of home. And then the last one is a search for home, or to remember home, or to find somewhere to belong. So
Is there a sequence, Fuzila, when Fawcett talks about the themes of the experience of exile? Does Fawcett um, discuss this in terms of there's a kind of an order? Does it begin with any one in particular? Does it begin, for instance, with an identity crisis, or does it begin with a trauma that then triggers double vision, that then triggers identity crisis, and then is there a kind of a sequence, or are these themes non-interrelated or non-connected? Does
um,
does all the five themes, does it have to exist in the experience of exile, according to
uh,
Fawcett?
from what I read, it's related. It's all under the experience of exile, and then Fawcett puts it in a timeline that firstly, you have this double vision, and then you have identity shift and the suffering, and then you have this freedom to compare, and then a search for home. So I think there's a
What
relation there.
Brilliant. Now, what causes the double vision? What triggers the developmental stage into which this double vision exists? Is there something that Fawcett problematizes? For instance, something in the environment triggers something, triggers in the individual
Mm-hmm.
the development of double vision. Is because double vision cannot, this construct called double vision, it cannot materialize out of nowhere, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, so what does Fawcett say about that?
Mm, I think it's like exposure to another culture or another place, something like that. I think that's what Fawcett said. in the paper?
You need to probe that a little bit more.
Okay.
Probe Fawcett's framework of the themes of the experience of exile. Probe that a little bit more so that you can use these ideas as a lens in reading the Corpse Washer and the Yellow Bird. Because
Okay.
if you're not if the framework doesn't if it's not comprehensive enough to you, you will not be able to find, for instance, where the character of Jawad, where does he begin the journey of exile for him? When does he start double vision? Was there something that triggers the development of double vision for him compared to in the Yellow Birds, whichever character that you are analyzing? So I think you want to show it shouldn't be a clinical, okay, these are examples of double vision, these are examples of massive identity shift, and so on. You want to be able to problematize Fawcett's framework of the exile experience against these two novels, and maybe something new will come out from that discussion, right? Maybe in the Corpse Washer, the sequence is not as Fawcett has identified here, right? It may start with something else. In the Yellow Bird, it may be slightly different. So the experience, the exile experience may differ from one context to another, especially in the way stories are told. So that could be an implication of your study. Because you don't want to show, okay, these are what Fawcett says, and they are evident in both novels, full stop. Like, okay, so what's the impact of that, right? But we want to show that in terms of theoretical lens, this is what Fawcett has identified. However, as this lens is appropriated as a reading approach, these are the things that I find. These are the more interesting things that I find, that maybe the sequence is not according to how Fawcett has presented here. So what is the sequence in the soldier's story, the experience of exile, and the experience of loss of home and being seen as a stranger in one's own land, and all the rest of it. So you want to make it more complex. You don't want to make it, you don't want to make your analysis and your discussion too sterile, too simple and sterile. Yeah.
Okay. Because I have the excerpt, but I didn't analyze it yet because I want to know if this framework is okay for my analysis.
It's fine.
Okay. I'll probe it further when I really do the analysis.
Sure.
Okay. All right. That's all. Oh, thesis statement. Oh, sorry. Comparing my thesis statement is this study is then to compare and analyze the experience of exiles in Jawad's character from Sinan Anton's The Corpse Washer with Barta's character from Kevin Powers' The Yellow Birds.
Okay, so if this is the thesis statement, why have you put the loss of home in the title? Why
that's a good question.
Because you don't want to complicate matters. If your focus is the idea of being a stranger, you want to first of all unpack what that means. What does being a stranger mean, right? There is a sense of a self-imposed exile that these two characters experience in their own home environment, and due to circumstance, due to things that they have experienced and endured, right? So you may say that this experience causes them to lose in their mind their sense of home. But if you want to do that, that means the issue of loss of home is actually something that you draw from the analysis, i.e. it's in the conclusion, which means you don't want to have it in your title. Because if you put it in your title, you need to use it as part of your analysis.
Okay, then I'll just remove it from the
Yes,
title.
yes, exactly.
Okay.
So even in your presentation slides, the issue about home can be removed
Okay.
unless you want to use the discussion to reiterate what exile mean. So when somebody experiences exile, what does that mean? They lose their sense of they lose an imagined home. For them, there isn't that concept of home in their mind, right? But don't go into it in depth because that's not your thesis. That's not what you are focusing on.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I
Okay.
think that's all. Yep.
But I wouldn't put the thesis statement at the end, though, right? The thesis statement should come at the beginning.
Yes. It's just I haven't rearranged
Sure. Yeah. Sure.
the slides. Yeah.
But I look forward to your presentation.
All right. Thank you, Doctor.
So I'll see you Thursday.